Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to the Conflict of Nick channel. I'm your host Nick, and this is going to be the next video of the Conflict of Nations every unit in the game tier making list. It's a multi-part series, so stay tuned for every part. Links to previous parts will be down in the description, and links to future parts, if they are already uploaded, will be uploaded in the description later on as well. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to. It really helps me grow. And that's all. Enjoy the video. Our first unit for this video, or the next unit if you've already seen the first two parts, is going to be the mobile radar. This is going to be your land-based radar, and this is going to be one of the most useful units, in my opinion, in the game for radar besides the AWACS, because it can do exactly what the AWACS can't. It can detect low signature ground targets, which means it can detect infantry. This thing is packing a 250 range radar, and it can detect low ground units. I believe it can detect a couple low aircraft, but I think it detects high aircraft, and I think it detects high sea. But what this thing is great for is detecting any low, basically, signature ground units, and it can also detect stealth, as well as, like, it can detect special forces or any stealth units on the ground. AWACS can detect stealth air units, but this radar can do exactly what the AWACS's weakness is. It's a little bit harder to get around because it's a ground unit, obviously, so it will have a little bit less maneuverability because it has to use airports, and it can only use them at level 2, well, the second tech level, that is. But overall, I would say these are a great unit as well, because you can pair them up in a stack and have them move with your artillery permanently. Wherever your artillery goes, this will go. And especially if you have the Security Council and you have aggressive targeting mode, your radar will detect enemy units for your rocket launchers or whatever artillery you're using to hit them automatically. And these will be very good because these can detect just about anything besides what the AWACS can, is going to be low air targets. I'm going to put this at an easy A up with the AWACS because it belongs right up there with it, because it just complements what the AWACS fails to do. And especially if you have both of these, what can you not detect besides submarines and stealth aircraft? They can detect stealth, you just have to be in the view range. Sonar is the only thing these things can't detect, so keep that in mind. I would say they're both great. The second unit we're going to be going over in this video is going to be the mobile artillery. Now, the mobile artillery is interesting because it's kind of the odd child between towed artillery and multiple rocket launchers. It's kind of a tank turned into artillery. One of its biggest factors is its large hit point value. It has way more hit points than the other artilleries. It's a hard target, and it's basically a tank because it also cannot be ferried by aircraft until level 6, or aka the third tech level. This makes it a little bit bad because it's obviously harder to get around, and its attack range caps out at 85, which means it doesn't have 100 attack range, which means it can't contest 100 range ships or artillery like multiple rocket launchers, and so it kind of hinders the mobile artillery's ability to do its job effectively. Now, what it is meant for is for countering armor. This thing does a lot of armor damage compared to infantry damage, and it can do obviously infantry damage as well, but what this thing is meant to do is to do more damage to armored targets and have a decent range. Combined with a large hit point value of 40 or 42, I think, for the European doctrine, which is the doctrine these things are best in, I would say this isn't a bad unit. I wouldn't recommend it completely because there's other artillery units like the one we'll be getting to in a few minutes, but overall this thing isn't horrible, and it's not a bad idea for a European nation. I would throw this at a B tier because it has solid range. It does decent damage to armored targets and even some soft targets, but really what it lacks is maneuverability because of obviously its lack of air ferrying capabilities and its lackluster range compared to other artillery and ships. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the most common unit in the game by default, because you start with 10 of them or so every game. It's going to be the one, the only, Motorized Infantry. Now, this is honestly one of my favorite units in the game because there's never a game I don't get it because you start with it anyway, so even if I didn't research it, I still have it. What these things are good for is they're good at taking land, taking cities, holding cities. They're basically the backbone of your army. They're meant to take land, support other armored and support units and other infantry, and really they're going to be what you expand your nation with, so they're always going to be important no matter what. Level 1 research time only takes 30 seconds, and one of the biggest things that makes these more than just basic infantry is that they are the only infantry in the game that get a ranged attack. This automatically puts them at an S tier for me because their mortars are able to just counter any infantry. If there was two stationary infantry next to each other, and this one was max level and the other was max level, say mechanized infantry, and they could not move, this one will bombard the mechanized to death because you can attack it without having to go into the actual city and get into melee combat. So you can kill 100 stationary units without losing a single motorized infantry if they are not moving because of this simple ranged attack. This means you don't have to get into melee engagements like you would at lower levels and with other types of infantry. And obviously it's more basic, it's easy to use, but the mortars allow you to deal with things like that, especially with rogue states. Rogue states can pose somewhat of a threat to your infantry, so you always have the option to bombard before you go into the city, and if you have to get off, you can come back and see that you killed the rogue state and then take the rogue state without taking any damage. It's as simple as that. That's why Motorized Infantry is one of the best in the game, in my opinion, overall units in the game, because it has this thing that no other infantry has, and it has like rarely any debuffs. It has a couple buffs in forests and cities, so this is going to be an easy S tier for me, in my opinion, because what's not to like about that? Now, another moment you've all been waiting for. One of the best units in this game overall, a support unit, artillery unit. It's going to be the multiple rocket launcher. This unit is by far one of the best in the game because it has the highest range of any artillery. It has the same attack range as surface navy vessels. It can outrange any other artillery, and it has equal damage to soft and hard targets, so you don't have to worry about what your enemy's compositions are. You just fire free at will, and you'll deal the same amount of damage basically every time, not even depending on what's in the stack. This thing will require a lot of buildings to build, obviously, because it requires level 4 base, but when you get these things up to level 4, they become insanely worth it. They get 100 range at level 4, they can air ferry at level 4, which is their second tech level, and that just makes them so maneuverable compared to mobile artillery, for example. And they're just so effective because they also have 5.5 damage to ships. So the stats for this thing at max level are 7 damage to ground targets and 5.5 to ships. So a 10 stack off the bat is doing 70 damage to armored / soft targets and 55 to ships. That's insane. That's absurd. This thing can just do basically, it seems, everything that you would want it to do. It can even defend your coastline. I would say this is one of the easiest S tiers in my life because of just what it can do, especially in the hands of an experienced player who knows how to hit and run. You always want to have these protected by anti-aircraft, radars, jets, and also have infantry and armor along the front lines with it, because this thing will be such a factor in just crushing enemy lines just by simply bombarding them, killing them, and then moving up. That's all you have to do. They're so good to use. Next up, it's the biggest meme of the game. It's going to be National Guards. National Guards aren't something you see every day, but you'll see them more often than you would think. National Guards are the cheapest infantry, and they play a very specific role. They're really good for mass producing if you have to conquer a lot of land or need to quell insurgencies or just want to defend your homeland, especially in the early game if you need a lot of units fast. National Guard's the way to go. One interesting thing about the way that National Guards work is that they do very low attack damage. Their defense damage is really good, especially in cities, as they get a 50% defense buff. But what they do is they spawn at the morale level of your city HP wise. So if your morale of your city is 70%, they're going to spawn at 70% hit points. So you want to make sure that your morale is good in the city you're making them in. They're good for defending. You don't want to just have these going off on their own and attacking, because they'll just get demolished by basically any other type of infantry. But they're good at defending, and they're good at taking a lot of land if they don't have to go up against any opposition. If you need to take a lot of land fast and the enemy troops are cleared and you don't really have any opposition besides maybe Rogue State, I would say these are really good for doing that job. I'm going to say they're a C tier because going up against most infantry, besides defending cities at a high level, they're really not going to do too well. But in the early game especially, they can be very good if you produce a lot of them. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. I am enjoying making this series so far, and obviously it's ended up being more parts than I thought it would be, but we've come this far. So guys, if you enjoy the channel or enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out, and it's the single biggest thing that helps my channel grow and thrive. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you guys disliked it, leave a dislike. And in the comments, if you want to write why you liked or disliked it, feel free to do so. If you have a question or you just want to say hi, you can also do that. I try to react and respond to as many as I can, and if I haven't yet, I will get to it later. So guys, I hope you have a beautiful day. Stay tuned for the future parts. Nick out.